Mira lived in a quiet settlement on the edge of the colony. Her home was simple but strong. Every wall, every floor, and every window had been designed to withstand the harsh winds of the planet. Mira loved her home. It was her safe place, a small world where she could think, create, and build. Today she was working on the energy shield around her wall. It was a small project, but one that made her proud. The shield would protect her home from debris, storms, and anything that might crash into it. Mira smiled as she adjusted the controls. Her wall now glowed with a soft blue light, humming quietly as it held its invisible barrier. She stepped back and admired her work. Everything was perfect. The sky was clear and the settlement was calm. People were going about their day, some repairing their homes, others preparing food or supplies. Mira enjoyed watching them from her window. Life on this planet was not easy, but humans had made it work. The settlement was a symbol of human persistence. Every structure told a story of hard work, courage, and hope. Mira felt proud to be part of it. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the settlement. It was sharp and unexpected, a sound that made Mira's heart jump. She ran outside, her eyes scanning for the source. Then she saw it. A hover jeep had slammed into her wall. Sparks flew, metal bent, and part of her energy shield flickered and disappeared. Mira froze for a moment. She could not believe what had happened. The jeep's engine hissed and smoked. Its front was badly damaged, and the wall she had worked on so carefully now had a deep dent. The driver climbed out. Mira could see her clearly now. She was young, with long hair tied back, and she wore the expensive uniform of her family's corporate status. Mira had seen her before, always surrounded by helpers, always moving with confidence, always sure she could get whatever she wanted. This was Lila. Mira had heard rumors about her, but meeting her like this was shocking. Lila looked around and immediately focused on Mira. Her eyes were sharp, filled with annoyance, and she began speaking without waiting for Mira to say anything. "You destroyed my Jeep," Lila said. Her voice was cold and demanding. "You need to fix it. I will not pay for this." Mira blinked. She had expected anger, maybe even an apology, but this was different. Lila was trying to make herself the victim. Mira felt a mix of surprise and frustration. She had not touched the Jeep, and anyone could see it was Lila's driving that caused the crash. Mira spoke calmly. "You crashed into my wall. My shield was protecting my home. You were not careful." Lila laughed, a sound that was sharp and mocking. "Careful? I was driving normally. Your wall was in my way. You have to pay for the damage to my Jeep." Mira felt her heart sink for a moment. How could someone be so wrong and still be so confident? She knew she had to stay calm. Losing her temper would only make things worse. Mira walked closer to her wall and activated her small drone. The drone flew around the Jeep and the wall, capturing every angle. It recorded the dents, the sparks, and the skid marks in the ground. Mira knew this evidence would be important. "Look," Mira said, showing Lila the screen of the drone. "The marks are clear. Your Jeep hit my wall. You can see how the shield protected the structure. This was your mistake." Lila frowned, clearly unhappy with the evidence. She waved her hand dismissively. "I do not care about your drones. My family can take care of this." "You will pay for the damage to my Jeep." Mira took a deep breath. She had faced challenges before, but this was different. Lila was powerful, connected, and used to getting her way. Mira realized she would need more than words to solve this. She began documenting everything. She took measurements of the wall, noted the timing, and even recorded the sound of the crash. Every detail mattered. Every bit of evidence could protect her. As the settlement watched, some neighbors came closer. They were curious and concerned. Mira waved them back. She did not want anyone interfering, at least not yet. This was her problem, and she had to handle it wisely. Mira thought about her next steps. She could call the settlement council, the local authority that handled disputes, but she wanted to prepare first. Preparation meant safety, and safety meant her home and her life would remain intact. Lila's frustration grew. She tried to intimidate Mira by leaning against her Jeep and crossing her arms. Mira ignored the gestures. Instead, she focused on the facts. The drone showed the skid marks leading to the wall, the angle of impact, and the timing of the shield's flicker. Everything pointed to one truth. Lila had caused the crash. Mira's calm approach made her feel strong. She realized that even though Lila had wealth and influence, Mira had something more important. She had reason, evidence, and a clear mind. Then Lila did something unexpected. She pulled out a small device, something that looked like a tablet. She began recording Mira, speaking into it as if she were telling the story to someone far away. "This is unfair," Lila said. "I was driving normally and she attacked my Jeep. She is responsible." Mira stopped for a moment. This was a challenge, but not one she could ignore. She activated her own drone to record Lila. Now both sides were documenting everything. The air was tense and the settlement seemed to hold its breath. People watched silently, sensing that something important was happening. Mira could feel the eyes of her neighbors and friends. Some looked worried, others supportive. Mira reminded herself to stay calm. The truth would matter more than noise, more than yelling, and more than power. After a while, Mira spoke. "If you want to take this further, we will do it properly. The settlement council can review the evidence. My wall was not in your path. You caused this accident," Lila scoffed. "I will not wait for your counsel. My family has lawyers. You will see. You cannot fight me." Mira smiled slightly, not because she was happy, but because she understood something important. She had faced difficult situations before, and she knew this was no different. Lila's confidence was her weakness. Mira had truth, patience, and the community on her side if she handled things correctly. She began collecting more evidence, making diagrams, and even marking the exact position of her wall. Every detail would count in the coming days. The sun began to set over the settlement. The sky turned red and orange, casting long shadows. Mira stood in front of her damaged wall, watching as the glow of her energy shield flickered. She felt a mix of anger and determination. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. Lila would fight hard, and her family's influence could make things complicated. But Mira also knew that humans on this planet had one strength that nothing could take away: intelligence and resilience. Mira spent the night reviewing the drone footage. She paused, rewound, and examined every second of the crash. She could see clearly how Lila had ignored warnings, how the Jeep moved too fast, and how the shield had softened the impact. Mira made notes for the settlement council, making sure everything was accurate. Accuracy mattered more than emotion. The council would respect facts, not opinions. By morning, Mira had prepared her plan. She would go to the council, present her evidence, and remain calm no matter what Lila tried. She packed her drones, her measurements, and her recordings into a small portable case. Mira knew that justice in this settlement depended on human fairness, not wealth or power. She felt a sense of pride in herself and in the community she was part of. As Mira walked toward the council hall, she glanced back at her damaged wall. The dent was deep, but it was a symbol. It was proof that humans could face challenges, unexpected problems, and reckless actions and still stand strong. Mira's heart felt steady. She was ready to defend her home, her work, and the truth. The settlement buzzed quietly in the morning light. People moved, prepared for their day, and watched the story unfold. Mira's courage and preparation would soon show them that human intelligence and fairness were stronger than arrogance and recklessness. Lila was powerful, but Mira had something even stronger: the facts, calm reasoning, and determination. Mira stood outside the council hall, her portable case in hand. She could feel the weight of the evidence she had collected. But more than that, she felt the weight of responsibility. Her home, her work, and her reputation depended on the council seeing the truth. The settlement council was small but respected. It was made up of experienced settlers who had seen many disputes over property, repairs, and accidents. They valued fairness and facts above everything else. Mira knew she had to present her case clearly and calmly. The doors of the council hall opened and Mira stepped inside. The room was bright, with walls made of reinforced glass allowing light from the sun to fill the space. Several council members sat in their seats looking serious but attentive. They did not need to be impressed with words. They would be impressed with facts. Mira placed her case on the table and began arranging her equipment. Drones, recordings, measurements, and diagrams were all carefully displayed. Every detail mattered. Then the doors opened again. Lila entered, her presence commanding attention. She wore her usual expensive uniform and moved with confidence. Behind her were two corporate lawyers, their faces professional and calculating. Lila did not look at Mira directly. She scanned the room expecting support, or at least fear. Mira did not flinch. She had seen this before. People who relied on power and wealth often thought it could replace truth and reason. The council began the session. The head of the council, a tall woman named Nora, spoke first. "We are here to review the dispute between Mira, a resident of this settlement, and Lila, daughter of a corporate family. Both parties will present their evidence and we will make a fair decision." "Let us begin." Mira stepped forward. Her voice was calm and steady. "I will present the facts as they occurred. On the morning of the accident, Lila's hover jeep crashed into my wall. My energy shield activated and absorbed much of the impact. I have recordings, measurements, and diagrams to show exactly how this happened." She activated her drone footage. The council members leaned forward as the video played. The screen showed the jeep approaching Mira's wall too fast. Sparks flew as the vehicle hit the shield. The wall bent slightly, but the shield held. The video captured every detail, including skid marks in the ground, the angle of impact, and the speed of the vehicle. Mira pointed to the critical frames. "You can see clearly that the jeep was moving too fast," Mira explained. "The shield absorbed the force, preventing serious damage. This was not caused by my wall being in the way. This was caused by reckless driving." Lila's lawyers whispered to her, and she frowned. She had expected the council to be intimidated by her presence, but now they were watching evidence. Mira continued. She brought out her diagrams, showing the precise measurements of the wall and the shield's capacity. She explained how the shield functioned and how it had protected her home. Every word was deliberate, every detail clear. One council member, a man named Hiran, raised his hand. "Mira, these recordings are convincing, but we also need to understand the context. Was the wall built in a place where vehicles normally pass?" Mira nodded. "No, the wall marks the boundary of my property. Vehicles should not enter this area. Lila's jeep crossed the boundary, ignoring signs and warnings. My wall and shield were always within my property lines." Another council member, Tara, leaned forward. "Do you have proof that the jeep's path caused the accident rather than the wall?" Mira smiled slightly. She had anticipated this question. She handed over the data log from Lila's jeep, which she had secretly copied using her drone sensors before the council session. The log showed that the jeep's thrusters had been pushed beyond safe limits and that Lila ignored automated warnings about speed and proximity to structures. This log shows that the vehicle could have avoided the wall if proper. Caution was taken, Mira explained. The accident was preventable. The responsibility lies with the driver, not my property. The council members exchanged glances. They were impressed by the thoroughness of Mira's preparation. Lila, on the other hand, was growing frustrated. She tried to interrupt. "This is false." "The wall blocked my path. She is lying to protect herself. The accident was her fault." Nora, the head of the council, raised her hand. "We will not tolerate interruptions. Evidence will speak. The council will listen carefully to facts, not opinions." Lila's lawyers tried to argue using legal jargon that was more suited for corporate courts, but the council was not swayed. They had experience with human settlements, not corporate games. Mira's clarity and calmness won their attention. After hours of testimony and discussion, the council took a short break. Mira stepped outside and breathed deeply. The sun was warm on her face and the settlement was quiet. She saw neighbors watching from a distance. Some nodded in support while others simply observed. Mira realized that the story of her accident had spread quickly. People respected courage and preparation. They could see that Mira was standing strong without needing to shout or threaten. When the session resumed, Lila tried a new tactic. She presented a report claiming that her Jeep's advanced navigation system had detected the wall too late, implying that Mira had somehow interfered. Mira calmly countered with technical details showing that no interference occurred, and that the system's delayed response was due to Lila's reckless handling. The council members nodded as they reviewed the evidence. Mira also demonstrated a small experiment. She used a scale model of her wall and a miniature hover jeep. She recreated the accident in front of the council. The model showed clearly how speed, angle, and weight caused the impact. Every council member could see the truth. Even Lila's lawyers were forced to pause, realizing how clear the demonstration was. Throughout the session, Mira stayed calm. She did not let Lila's frustration or arrogance affect her. She spoke logically, presented evidence, and anticipated questions. The council members asked detailed questions, which Mira answered patiently. Every answer reinforced her credibility. Meanwhile, Lila grew more agitated. She tapped her fingers on the table, whispered to her lawyers, and even tried to redirect the discussion to irrelevant topics. But the council focused on facts. Mira's preparation and calmness highlighted the contrast between reason and arrogance. Finally, Nora addressed the room. The council appreciates the thorough evidence presented by Mira. We also recognize that Lila has expressed her concerns. However, The responsibility for the accident must be based on facts, not status or influence. Mira felt a quiet sense of relief. She had not yet won, but she had made her position clear. The council would make a fair judgment based on evidence. Lila, despite her wealth and power, could not hide the truth. After the session, Mira walked back home. She looked at the damaged wall, still glowing faintly from the energy shield. It was a reminder that humans could face unexpected challenges and remain strong. Mira felt proud, not just for herself but for what humans could achieve when they used reason, preparation, and fairness. That night, Mira reviewed all her data once again. She added notes, checked measurements, and made sure everything was perfect. The council's decision could take time, and she wanted to be ready for any further challenges. Mira also noticed a pattern in the Jeep's data. There were modifications that reduced safety limits. She made a note to investigate further. If Lila or her family tried to manipulate the facts, Mira would have the proof. Neighbors came by to offer support. They admired Mira's courage. Some even shared their own experiences with reckless drivers and property disputes. Mira listened, grateful for their encouragement but focused on the task ahead. Justice in this settlement was not guaranteed. It required careful action, preparation, and patience. Mira had all three. The next morning, Mira prepared to meet the council again. This time, she would present her full analysis of the Jeep's modifications, showing how Lila's family's technology had created risks. She also planned to show simulations proving that any careful driver could have avoided the accident. Mira knew that presenting facts clearly, with evidence, would be more powerful than arguing or showing anger. As she entered the council hall, Mira noticed the tension. Lila was already there, her frustration visible. Mira felt calm. She had done everything she could to prepare. Her drones, her data logs, her diagrams, and her simulations were ready. She would show that human reason and fairness could overcome arrogance and wealth. The council session began. Mira presented her findings in detail. She explained the modifications in the hover Jeep, how they affected safety systems, and how the driver ignored warnings. The council members listened closely. They asked questions which Mira answered patiently. Her calm logic impressed everyone. Lila could only glare, unable to counter the clear evidence. Hours passed. The session was long, but Mira stayed focused. She presented every detail, anticipated every question, and remained calm despite Lila's interruptions. The council members whispered among themselves, clearly weighing the evidence carefully. Mira realized that her preparation and calmness were working. Reason and fairness were stronger than arrogance and impatience. By the end of the session, Mira felt confident. She had shown the truth, presented evidence, and remained calm throughout. The council would now deliberate. Mira stepped outside, feeling the warm wind on her face. The day after the council session, the settlement seemed quieter than usual, but Mira could feel a tension in the air. People whispered as they walked past her home. Some stared curiously at the damaged wall, while others nodded with silent support. Mira knew the story of the hover Jeep crash had spread quickly. Lila's attempt to claim the wall was at fault had not gone unnoticed. Some neighbors sided with her, influenced by her family's wealth. Others, however, admired Mira's courage and careful preparation. Mira began her day by checking the wall and the energy shield. The dent from the crash was still visible, but the shield's hum reassured her. It had absorbed most of the force and her home remained safe. Mira moved her drones around, inspecting every detail. She noticed something in the hover Jeep's tracks, a small mark she had not recorded before. It was subtle, but it confirmed her earlier conclusion. The accident had been caused by reckless driving. Mira took detailed notes. Every small observation could matter in the council's decision. As she worked, Lila approached, this time accompanied by 2 assistants from her family. She did not speak at first, simply standing near the Jeep and looking at Mira's wall with a displeased frown. Mira remained calm, continuing her inspection and measurements. Lila finally spoke. "You think you can win this with drones and diagrams?" she asked, her voice sharp. "My family has more resources than you. You cannot fight us." Mira looked up and smiled gently. "I am not fighting you, Lila. I am presenting facts. Facts are stronger than resources or fear. The council will see that." Lila's frown deepened. "They will see nothing but what I say. You cannot make them side with you." Mira shook her head. "The council values truth. You cannot change the facts. Your driving caused the crash. The evidence proves it. Lila's assistants whispered to her, and she seemed unsure for a moment. Mira's calm logic and preparation were clearly affecting her confidence. Mira turned her attention back to the wall, running another scan with her drones. She felt proud of her work. The shield, though damaged, had protected her home. It was a reminder that careful preparation and human ingenuity could prevent disaster. Word of the incident had drawn some neighbors closer. A few approached Mira cautiously. One was Kieran, an older engineer who had helped build several structures in the settlement. "You handled this well," he said quietly. "Most people would have panicked. You stayed calm and collected evidence. That is the right approach." Mira nodded. "Thank you, Kieran. I cannot control what others do, but I can control my preparation and my actions." Another neighbor, Suma, approached with a tablet in hand. "I heard about the hover jeep crash. Some residents are worried about safety near your wall. They think this could happen again." Mira smiled reassuringly. "The shield is strong. I will repair the dent and improve it. No accident like this will damage my home again. I also want to share what I learned with others so everyone can protect their homes." As the day continued, Lila grew more frustrated. She tried to gather supporters, but Mira's calm demeanor and clear evidence made it difficult. People began questioning Lila's claims. Some whispered that her family's wealth had made her overconfident. Others admired Mira's courage and patience. The settlement was slowly turning in Mira's favor, even before the council delivered its judgment. That evening, Mira worked on repairing the wall. She adjusted the energy shield and reinforced the damaged section with stronger materials. She programmed her drones to monitor the shield constantly, ensuring that any future impact would be detected and recorded. Mira enjoyed the work. Every adjustment, every repair, reminded her that humans could overcome challenges with intelligence and effort. She was building not just a wall, but confidence and safety for herself and others in the settlement. The next day, Lila returned with a new plan. She wanted to intimidate Mira by publicly visiting her home and questioning her actions. Mira noticed the hover jeep approaching from a distance, Lila inside, her assistants trailing behind. Mira took a deep breath and prepared. She activated her drones to monitor the approach, capturing video and environmental data. As Lila arrived, she stepped out of the jeep and looked around. "You are making this worse for yourself," she said. "You cannot win. I have the council on my side already." Mira remained calm. "The council has not made a decision yet. They will base it on facts, not influence. That is why I prepared carefully." Lila's frown deepened. She was clearly frustrated that Mira was not intimidated. Mira could see her anger growing, but she remained focused. She demonstrated a small experiment using her drones and a model of the hover jeep. She showed how the accident could have been avoided if the driver had followed safety rules. The demonstration was clear and precise. The drones projected a holographic image in the air, showing every angle of the crash. The settlement residents nearby watched silently, impressed by Mira's technical skill and patience. Some neighbors whispered to each other. "She is clever and calm," one said. "I think Mira will win." Lila's assistants looked uneasy. They were not used to seeing someone so young, so calm, and so prepared. Mira's evidence, her calm logic, and her ability to explain complex details simply were winning the silent support of the community. After the demonstration, Mira turned to Lila. "The accident happened because of reckless driving. The wall and shield were not in the wrong place. This is not about influence or power. It is about facts." Lila's eyes flashed with anger. She wanted to argue, to shout, to intimidate, but Mira's calm presence made it difficult. Mira's determination and preparation created a barrier stronger than any words. That night, Mira reviewed her data once more. She had captured every detail: the damage to the wall, the Jeep's data logs, the drone footage, and her diagrams. She even recorded the environmental conditions at the time of the accident. Everything would be presented to the council if needed. Mira also noticed something important. The Jeep had hidden modifications that reduced the effectiveness of safety features. She made careful notes. This would show the council that the accident was even more avoidable than it first appeared. Meanwhile, Lila's frustration continued to grow. She spoke to her lawyers and assistants in hushed tones, trying to figure out how to respond to Mira's calm and prepared approach. She had expected fear, hesitation, or mistakes, but Mira had shown none of these. Her calm reasoning and thorough preparation were difficult to challenge. Lila realized that she could not rely on intimidation alone. Mira's intelligence and careful documentation had created a situation she had not anticipated. The settlement buzzed with curiosity and quiet admiration. People began to discuss Mira's courage and technical skill. They admired how she had turned a dangerous accident into a lesson in preparation, responsibility, and fairness. Mira had become more than a resident defending her wall. She was an example of human intelligence and resilience. The next day, Mira focused on improving her wall and shield. She strengthened the damaged section and tested it under various conditions. She used her drones to simulate impacts from different angles and speeds. Every test confirmed that the wall and shield were now stronger than before. Mira smiled. This accident had given her an opportunity to make her home better, safer, and smarter. She felt proud of the human ingenuity that had allowed her to accomplish this. As she worked, neighbors came by with small gifts and words of encouragement. Some offered technical advice. Others simply wanted to show support. Mira welcomed them, but she remained focused on her preparation for the council. She understood that human effort, community support, and careful planning were stronger than fear or arrogance. Lila, unable to challenge Mira directly, began searching for ways to shift the council's opinion. She tried to gather evidence that the wall was in the wrong place, or that Mira had somehow provoked the accident. Mira anticipated these attempts and prepared counter-evidence. She recorded measurements, environmental data, and even recreated the accident using small models. Every detail reinforced the truth. The accident was Lila's fault. Mira also spoke with her neighbors about the importance of safety and responsibility. She explained how careful driving, proper attention, and following safety rules could prevent accidents. The community listened, impressed by her patience and clear explanations. Mira's actions showed that humans could learn from mistakes and improve their environment together. The days passed and tension in the settlement continued to rise. Lila grew more impatient while Mira remained calm and focused. The council's decision was still pending, but Mira's careful preparation and calm logic had already won the silent support of many in the settlement. People began to understand that intelligence, patience, and careful evidence mattered more than wealth, power, or arrogance. One evening, Mira stood by her wall and watched the sunset. The glow of the energy shield highlighted the repaired section. She felt a quiet sense of pride. The accident had been challenging, but it had also shown the strength of human preparation, intelligence, and fairness. Mira knew that whatever the council decided, she had already demonstrated the best of human capability. She looked toward Lila's hover jeep in the distance and realized that human arrogance could not defeat careful preparation and clear reasoning. Mira smiled to herself. The next steps would be important, but she was ready. The day of the council's final hearing arrived. Mira felt a mixture of nerves and determination as she walked toward the council hall. The settlement seemed unusually quiet. People were watching from a distance, curious and concerned about the outcome. Mira held her case carefully, making sure every piece of evidence was ready. She had drones, diagrams, data logs, and models all prepared for one purpose: to show the truth. The council hall was filled with people. Neighbors, residents, and even some outsiders from nearby settlements had come to watch. They had heard about the accident and the dispute and wanted to see justice in action. Mira felt a sense of responsibility. This was more than a personal dispute. It was an example for the entire settlement. If truth and fairness could win here, it would inspire everyone. Lila arrived in her hover jeep, flanked by her corporate lawyers. She looked confident, but Mira could sense tension beneath the surface. Lila had tried to intimidate, to use her family's influence, but Mira's calm and prepared presence had already unsettled her. Lila's lawyers whispered instructions, but Mira ignored them. She focused on the facts, not on fear or threats. The council session began. Nora, the head of the council, spoke first. "We are here to review the dispute regarding the hover jeep crash into Mira's wall. Both parties have presented preliminary evidence. Today we will hear final presentations and examine detailed evidence before making a fair decision." Mira stepped forward. She felt calm, but her heart was steady with determination. "I will present all the evidence clearly," she said. "The accident was caused by reckless driving. My wall and shield were in their proper place. The damage to the hover jeep was caused by actions of the driver, not by my property." She activated her drones. The room filled with holographic images showing the crash from multiple angles. The projection was detailed. The hover jeep's path, the speed, the angle of impact, and the exact moment the energy shield absorbed the force. Every council member leaned forward, clearly paying attention. Mira explained every detail carefully, pointing to the images and using her diagrams to show measurements. The shield softened the impact, Mira said. It prevented serious damage to my wall. The skid marks on the ground showed that the jeep moved too fast and at the wrong angle. The accident could have been avoided. Lila's lawyers tried to speak, but Nora raised her hand. We will hear from Mira first. Evidence comes before arguments, Mira continued. She brought out the data log from Lila's hover jeep. The log showed modifications to the vehicle that reduced safety limits. It also recorded warnings that were ignored by the driver. Mira explained. These warnings were ignored. The modifications increased the risk. The driver made choices that caused the accident. The council members murmured softly among themselves. The evidence was clear, detailed, and undeniable. Mira spoke slowly and clearly, making sure every member understood the technical aspects without confusion. Her calm reasoning was impressive. Lila's confidence wavered as the truth became more visible. Nora asked, Mira, can you demonstrate how the accident could have been avoided? Mira nodded. She set up her small model hover jeep and a scale model of the wall. The drones projected a holographic recreation of the accident in real time. Mira manipulated the model, showing how careful driving and attention to the warnings could have prevented the crash entirely. The council members could see it from every angle. This simulation shows that a careful driver could have avoided the wall completely, Mira explained. The accident was not caused by the wall but by the choices of the driver. Lila tried to interrupt. That is not fair. My family built the vehicle. It should work perfectly. Mira looked at her calmly. No vehicle is perfect. Every machine requires careful operation. The warnings were ignored. That is why the accident occurred. The council members nodded. They were clearly impressed by Mira's evidence and calm logic. One member, Hiran, spoke. The evidence shows that the wall was in its correct place. The shield worked as designed. The accident was caused by choices made by the driver, not by Mira or her property. Lila's lawyers attempted to argue about corporate standards and liability, but the council did not sway. Nora reminded them, this council values facts and fairness above all. Legal jargon or influence cannot change the truth. Mira took a deep breath and presented her final piece of evidence. She showed the environmental data from the day of the accident. Wind speed, surface conditions, and lighting were all recorded by her drones. The data confirmed that no external factors contributed to the accident. Every variable pointed to the same conclusion. Reckless driving caused the crash. The room was silent as the council reviewed the evidence. Mira's calmness and thorough preparation had created a clear picture. Lila's attempts to intimidate or manipulate the situation had no effect. Mira's facts spoke louder than any threats. Finally, Nora addressed the room. The council has carefully reviewed all evidence, simulations, and data. It is clear that the accident was caused by the driver's actions. Mira's wall and shield were in proper position and functioned as intended. The council rules in favor of Mira. A quiet murmur spread through the room. Some residents smiled, others nodded. Mira felt a deep sense of relief and pride. She had trusted in preparation, patience, and logic, and it had paid off. Lila's face turned red with frustration. She had expected to use her family's influence, but the truth had prevailed. Mira stepped forward. Thank you, council members. I only wanted to show the facts. Safety, preparation, and fairness matter more than influence, Nora nodded. Your actions today are an example for the entire settlement. Courage, preparation, and calm reasoning have led to a fair outcome. Lila glared at Mira, but Mira remained calm. She had not come here to argue or boast. She had come to show the truth. Her evidence, her drones, and her simulations had spoken clearly. Lila could not change the facts. After the session, residents approached Mira. Some congratulated her, others asked questions about her energy shield and drones. Mira explained everything patiently. She wanted to share her knowledge so others could protect their homes and understand the importance of careful planning. Her calm demeanor and willingness to teach inspired many. Even some of Lila's supporters whispered to each other, realizing that Mira's logic and preparation could not be ignored. Mira had not only won the case but also gained the respect of the settlement. She had shown that courage, intelligence, and fairness were stronger than arrogance, influence, or power. That evening, Mira returned home and inspected the wall once more. The damage was still visible, but the shield worked perfectly. She adjusted the shield slightly, improving its strength and adding extra sensors. Mira realized that even challenges and accidents could be opportunities to learn, improve, and inspire. Her neighbors came by to celebrate quietly. They brought small gifts and shared stories of their own experiences. Mira listened and offered advice about safety, preparation, and problem-solving. The settlement was slowly learning a lesson. Human ingenuity and careful reasoning were powerful tools. Mira also reviewed Lila's hoverjeep data one last time. She noticed additional modifications that could have caused other problems in the future. Mira made careful notes and planned to share her findings with the council, ensuring that similar accidents could be prevented. Her actions demonstrated foresight, intelligence, and responsibility. Lila, meanwhile, left quietly, her confidence shaken. She had expected to use influence and wealth to dominate the situation, but Mira's careful planning, calm reasoning, and technical skill had exposed the truth. Lila realized that power alone could not replace preparation, intelligence, and fairness. The next morning, the settlement resumed normal life, but Mira's victory had created a lasting impact. Residents began paying more attention to safety, preparation, and the careful use of technology. Mira continued her work on the wall and the shield, improving its strength and adding new features. Her drones monitored everything carefully, providing real-time data for her experiments and safety improvements. Mira reflected on the council's decision. She realized that courage alone was not enough. Preparation, knowledge, and careful planning were equally important. She had demonstrated that humans could face challenges, gather evidence, and defend themselves with intelligence and fairness. As she stood by her wall, watching the sun rise over the settlement, Mira felt proud. She had faced a powerful opponent, relied on careful planning, and stayed calm under pressure. Her victory was a reminder that humans could overcome challenges with preparation, intelligence, and patience. The settlement buzzed with quiet admiration. Mira had set an example for everyone. Truth, fairness, and careful reasoning could prevail against arrogance and recklessness. She had shown that even a single person, armed with knowledge and preparation, could stand up to power and protect what was right. Mira smiled and turned back to her wall. The energy shield glowed softly, strong and steady. She knew that challenges would come again, but she was ready. Humans were capable of intelligence, resilience, and fairness, and Mira had proven that in the most clear and powerful way. The council's decision was not just a personal victory. It was a celebration of human courage, preparation, and fairness. Mira had shown that truth and careful reasoning were stronger than influence, arrogance, and fear. The settlement was calm that morning, but Mira could feel a quiet energy in the air. The council's decision had been delivered the previous day, and the results had spread quickly. People were talking about the hoverjeep crash, Mira's careful preparation, and the way truth had triumphed over arrogance. Mira walked outside her home, inspecting the wall once more. The energy shield hummed steadily, glowing softly as it always did. The dent from the accident had been repaired, and the shield now had improved sensors that could detect even the smallest impact. Mira smiled, feeling a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment. She knew the work was not just about her wall or her home. It was about showing the settlement what humans could achieve when they acted with intelligence, preparation, and fairness. Mira had faced a powerful opponent, someone used to getting their way through wealth and influence. She had stayed calm, collected evidence, and relied on reason, and she had won. As Mira walked toward the central square, neighbors greeted her warmly. Some offered small gifts, others simply nodded or smiled. Mira had become a quiet hero in the settlement. Her actions had inspired people to believe that careful planning, intelligence, and courage could overcome challenges. She waved to Kieran, the older engineer who had supported her, and he smiled back. "You did more than defend your wall," he said. "You reminded everyone what it means to be human." Mira felt a warmth in her chest. She had not acted for praise or recognition. She had acted because it was the right thing to do. But seeing the settlement respond with admiration and support made her realize how important her example had become. People were talking about safety, preparation, and fairness. They were asking questions about her energy shield, the drones, and her methods. Mira patiently answered, explaining every detail in simple terms. She wanted them to understand that intelligence and careful planning were tools anyone could use. Meanwhile, Lila was nowhere to be seen. Mira had learned that she had returned to her family's corporate base in frustration. Her confidence had been shaken. She had expected to dominate the situation, but Mira's calm logic, careful preparation, and clear evidence had left no room for argument. Lila's lawyers were also quiet, realizing that even their legal skills could not change the facts. Mira had shown that truth and careful planning were stronger than influence or fear. Back at her home, Mira focused on further improving the energy shield. She adjusted the sensors to detect even minor impacts and reinforced the wall with advanced materials. Her drones flew around the perimeter, scanning the environment and collecting data for analysis. Mira enjoyed this work. It reminded her that humans were capable of learning, improving, and protecting themselves when they acted thoughtfully. Every adjustment, every measurement, every improvement was a lesson in resilience. Neighbors came by frequently, curious about the technology Mira used and the methods she employed. She explained everything patiently, demonstrating how the shield absorbed energy, how drones recorded evidence, and how careful observation could prevent accidents. The community was learning from her example. Mira realized that her actions had a ripple effect. She had not only protected her home but also inspired others to be careful, intelligent, and fair in their own actions. Mira also began mentoring younger residents who were interested in engineering and technology. She showed them how to build small shields, collect data, and analyze situations. She encouraged them to think carefully, plan ahead, and act responsibly. The settlement began to feel stronger, safer, and more connected. Mira understood that humans could accomplish great things when they shared knowledge and worked together. One afternoon, Mira noticed the hover jeep parked near the settlement's edge. Lila had returned, cautiously observing the community from a distance. Mira watched her quietly, not with anger or fear, but with calm confidence. She knew that Lila had learned a lesson about responsibility and the limits of influence. Mira had shown that preparation, reason, and fairness were stronger than arrogance or power. Lila would remember this experience for a long time. Mira returned to her work, adjusting the wall and shield once more. She tested the energy absorption, the structural strength, and the drone's responsiveness. Each test confirmed that her home was safer than ever. Mira felt a sense of pride not just in the technology but in what it represented. The wall and shield were symbols of human intelligence, preparation, and resilience. They showed that even when accidents happened, humans could respond wisely and effectively. As evening fell, Mira walked to the central square. The settlement was alive with quiet activity. People shared stories, exchanged ideas, and discussed improvements for their homes. Mira listened, offered advice, and encouraged innovation. She felt a sense of connection with the community. Humans had the ability to face challenges, learn from mistakes, and improve their lives. Mira had demonstrated this truth, and the settlement had embraced it. That night, Mira reflected on the entire experience. The accident had been unexpected, frightening, and challenging. Lila's attempt to claim fault had created tension and stress, but Mira had faced it with calmness, careful observation, and thorough preparation. She had documented every detail, presented evidence clearly, and anticipated every question. The council had recognized her fairness, her logic, and her intelligence. Mira realized that courage was important, but preparation, knowledge, and careful planning were just as vital. Mira also thought about the neighbors and younger residents she had mentored. She understood that sharing knowledge and encouraging others to act responsibly was a powerful way to strengthen the settlement. Humans were capable of great things when they worked together, learned from each other, and acted with fairness and intelligence. Mira felt proud of the impact she had made. The following days were calm but productive. Mira continued to improve the energy shield and wall. She monitored the settlement for any potential risks and shared her findings with the council and residents. People listened carefully, eager to learn. Mira's quiet leadership was making a lasting difference. Her actions had inspired a culture of careful planning, responsibility, and fairness. Lila, though still present in the settlement, kept her distance. Mira did not confront her. She understood that the lesson had already been learned. Lila's attempts to rely on wealth and influence had failed. Mira's calm reasoning and careful preparation had prevailed. Humans had demonstrated that truth, intelligence, and fairness were stronger than arrogance or fear. One morning, Mira received a message from Nora, the council head. The council wanted her to give a presentation to the community about safety, preparation, and technology. Mira agreed gladly. She prepared a detailed demonstration of the energy shield, the drones, and the methods she used to document the accident. The presentation was attended by the majority of the settlement. People asked questions, tested small shields, and learned from Mira's experience. The community grew stronger and safer because of her guidance. Mira also reflected on what she had learned personally. She understood that challenges were opportunities to learn and improve. Facing difficult situations with calmness, careful observation, and preparation could turn obstacles into lessons. Mira had not only defended her home, but she had also shown the settlement what humans were capable of: intelligence, courage, fairness, and the ability to protect and improve their environment. By the end of the week, Mira's wall and shield were fully upgraded. The settlement residents had installed smaller versions of the shield around their own homes. Mira had trained several young engineers to maintain and improve these systems. The hover jeep accident had become a story of human ingenuity and resilience, inspiring everyone to take responsibility for their actions and prepare for challenges. Lila watched quietly from a distance, clearly reflecting on her behavior. Mira did not approach her. There was no need. The lesson had been learned. Mira had demonstrated that preparation, intelligence, and fairness could overcome arrogance, recklessness, and influence. Lila had seen firsthand the strength of careful reasoning and human skill. As the sun set over the settlement, Mira stood by her wall, looking out over the community. The energy shield glowed softly in the fading light. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The challenge had been difficult, but it had strengthened her home, and her settlement. Mira knew that humans could face any challenge with intelligence, preparation, and fairness. The settlement buzzed with quiet excitement and admiration. Residents shared stories, practiced safety measures, and discussed improvements. Mira had created a lasting impact. Her calm logic, careful preparation, and willingness to share knowledge had inspired the entire community. Humans had shown that courage, intelligence, and fairness could prevail even against wealth, arrogance, or reckless behavior. Mira smiled, feeling a sense of peace and pride. She had faced the accident, confronted the challenge, and defended what was right. The settlement had learned valuable lessons about preparation, responsibility, and human ingenuity. Mira's actions had shown that even when accidents happen, humans can respond wisely, fairly, and effectively. The night settled over the settlement. Mira walked back to her home feeling proud and confident. The wall and shield stood strong, a symbol of human skill and careful preparation.